What's up everyone, welcome back to my channel where I share with you some tips and strategies on your adulting journey and also bring you along my journey to lead a more fulfilling life. So I profess, right, I'm actually a self-help junkie because I don't own a car. So many days I'm actually stuck in public transport reading a self-help book or listening to some form of either audiobook or a book summary on YouTube. So throughout this whole journey, I think I've read and listened to more than 150 self-help books. And it seems like in this 15 billion self-help industry, right, a lot of all this information, when you strip it down, all these different books and courses, they actually boil down to a few essential lessons. So in today's video, I'll share with you 3 practical and effective lessons that I find has been most helpful in my life, especially in today's world, whereby there is so much uncertainty, be it for like your careers, income, and some even our health for ourselves and people that are close to us. So hopefully you can take one or 2 key ideas away from this video and implement it in your life. So without further ado, let's roll the intro and get straight into today's video. So the first key lesson for me that I've learned is that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems and habits that you do every day. Every sportsman have a dream of going to the Olympics, and every Olympian have a dream to get the gold medal. But why is there only one Joseph schooling and the rest of us look like Joseph who is still schooling and drinking Milo? Because having a big goal is not as important as having the right habits and systems that are aligned to your goals. What do I mean? So in life, all of us want to lead fulfilling lives, be it in terms of our finances, our family, our friends, and our work, right? But day to day, how many of us actually have the right habits in place to spend quality time with our family, to spend a little bit of time doing a good workout so that we keep our mind refreshed? So with this hustle and bustle of life, it's important to have the right habits and systems, and I find that there are 2 principles that I've learned that has helped me a lot. So the books that helped me in this, right, is firstly The Power of Habit, which is published in 2014, and also Atomic Habits in 2018. So what I've learned from these 2 books, right, is that firstly is the idea of habit stacking. So do you find that sometimes when you have a habit that you would like to ingrain in your life, for example, reading, okay, you find it difficult because day to day you're already so used to not picking up a book and spending 10-15 minutes every day to read a particular book. So what habit stacking does is that you stack an existing habit that you have, for example drinking coffee, with a new habit that you want to form, for example reading. So every time you make a cup of coffee and drink coffee, tell yourself to pick up a book and to spend 10-15 minutes reading the book while you drink a coffee. So another example could be that you like to watch Netflix, right? And you really hate exercising and going on a treadmill. So what can you do here? You only allow yourself to watch the particular show on Netflix when you're on the treadmill, right? So you force yourself to do a workout while you watch the show that you would like to watch. And a refinement to this habit stacking exercise is to do what we call a too small to fail daily practice. So what this means, right, is that when you want to read a book, don't force yourself to spend like 1 hour and 1.5 hours to go through your book, because a lot of times this boils down to like sheer discipline, and as much as we like to believe that we are very disciplined people, discipline actually wears off. Alright, discipline and self-motivation actually wears off after a period of time. So what we do here is that you set your goals so small that it is so easy to accomplish. For example, reading for only 5 minutes, 10 minutes or 15 minutes rather than 1.5 hours. So this is very easy. While you drink your cup of coffee, read 15 minutes. Or when you want to watch a show, okay, spend 30 minutes walking on a treadmill, right? These are very easy targets, and this causes lesser friction with your current lifestyle with the goals that you want to do. right? And a lot of times when you embark on this journey, you find that, hey, actually reading 15 minutes is not that bad. Maybe I can go for 20, 25, 30 minutes. And when the book is enjoyable, you find yourself naturally spending more time reading anyways. This is a good way to get your habit going, to have it ingrained in your lives and your systems. The next key lesson that I've learned is to change your mental maps. So imagine this. If you are stuck somewhere in Singapore and you would like to look for the nearest shopping center, you take out your phone and to use Google Map, and for some reason, the map is being pinned somewhere in Malaysia. And when you're trying to look for your nearest shopping center, you are following the map. You're following every single instructions you have in the map, but yet you don't get to where you want to be because your map is an inaccurate depiction of where you are. And if you think of it, all of us actually have a mental map of how we perceive the world. You just look at people on forums or maybe your group of friends. When something happens, you find that two different people might have very vastly different way of how they perceive this particular situation. And for me, I have two main mindsets that actually help me a lot to change my mental map. The first mindset is actually to identify what is on your circle of control. And I learned this actually in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So when a situation arises, it's very important for you to identify what is within your control and what is outside of your control, where there's nothing you can do about it. No amount of worrying or planning is going to change that outcome. The second mindset I would like to share with you is a little bit more morbid, but it's true. Remember that you are going to die. I live in Singapore. The average lifespan where I live is about 83 years old. I am 27 this year. So effectively, right, what this means is that I've spent about 25 to 30% of my life already. If I'm lucky to live until 83. Note that and remember this fact that you are going to die and value your time accordingly. Because if you keep this in mind, I don't think you will spend 2 hours browsing TikTok or scrolling through Facebook mindlessly.
Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life.
Time is your most valuable asset. No amount of money later on in life can actually buy more time for you back. Countless people on their deathbed, right, they regret not spending enough time with their family, with their friends. Regret caring about what people think of them and working in a job that they absolutely hate. So having this mindset gives you some perspective on how you can actually plan in your journey. But of course, I'm not saying tomorrow go and tell your boss that you want to quit, right? Just keep this mindset in mind and plan for it accordingly, because we don't want one day when we are in our nursing homes, when we are old and frail, and we look back in our lives and think, where did all this time go? Next key lesson that I've learned is actually to define our fear. So a lot of us, we actually define our goals, but how many of us actually define our fears? Let me explain. So this is a strategy that I've read from the 4-Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss. So this book actually tells us that we should do this exercise to define our fear whenever we feel very uncertain or we are afraid of making a big decision in our lives. So there's this saying that we often suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Many times when we find ourselves in this state of fear to make a decision, write what I'm going to share with you down on a piece of paper to find more clarity and to see if this is the most optimal decision you can make in your life. So what is fear setting, right? It is to define what are the fears and what are the potential outcomes. What is the worst possible outcome that can be in your life? This is the exercise that you need to go through. How this table works, right, is that in the first portion, you need to define your fears. So for example, here, what if I were to leave my job? Okay, so what is the worst thing that can happen? So for example, you have no money for your next meal. Wow, you're very cham, cannot pay for your next meal, cannot pay for your loans. Here, right, it's also very important for you to define if it's temporary or is it permanent? So if you were to leave your job, what's the worst that can happen? What can you do about it? How can you prevent this from happening? So could you work a part-time job to actually keep yourself going as you leave your job? Could you also save some emergency funds, up to 6 to 12 months of your expenses if you are going to make a big career switch? Could you also create some form of passive income, like purchasing of dividend stocks, to actually keep some form of a basic income for yourself as you make this career switch? The final column is to repair. If the worst case happens, what can you do to actually repair this situation? Is it really that bad? So if you were to leave your job and change to a new career field, can you actually go back to your industry? Right? Could you sell off some of your stock holdings to keep your standard of living? So here, right, one thing that is very important in this exercise is that after defining your fear, do also review what is the cost of inaction and keeping in the status quo, right? For example, you're in a very high stress environment, a very toxic work culture, don't have time to eat, family relationship is suffering. Define what is the cost of inaction in the next 3 months, 6 months and 12 months for these different time periods. And you will find a lot of clarity, and usually you find that in the short term, you are at risk of 2 or 3 temporary potential pains for a permanent 8 to 9 times benefit to your lives. And finally, one key thing here is that we can't learn everything just by reading. You can't get everything from reading, right? You need to practice it, you need to share your learnings with others so that you are able to internalize all these different lessons to have it ingrained in your lives. So that's why I set up this channel to share with you some of the tips and strategies that has worked for me. If this kind of video resonates with you, do subscribe and click the notification bell so in the future videos you would be notified. Right, that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.